Hi, my name is Liz Keller, and I'm going to start a couple of videos about some of the amazing dogs that have come into my life over the years of doing animal rescue. Personally, I'd love to write a book, and hopefully that will happen one day, but it takes a lot of time. And currently working as a proprietor of a boarding kennel and also running rescue dogs, rescue soldiers takes up a lot of time. So I figured this might be a fun way for me to share some of my experiences with everyone and hope that you enjoy them. So, the first dog that I feel I should start with is Miracle. Miracle was a dog who came into our lives in 2000. It was at the time when I was living in Sullivan County, New York, and ran a rescue and a boarding kennel. And I was also a dog control officer there for the town of Mamakating, which was located in Wurtsboro, New York. So a neighboring dog control officer called about a horrible situation in the town of Thompson. She had received a call that there was a puppy buried alive. So, sorry about that. That was buried alive, and she was frantic. She went with the police, and they were able to retrieve the dog and bring him to the vet hospital. So at the time, no one knew anything about where he came from or, how this horrible situation happened. So he was in dire need of veterinary care. And, the towns usually would just take dogs in, carry them for the 3 to 7 day hold that was mandated by the state of New York. But if the dog came in severely compromised and was really sick, then the option would be to euthanize so that there was no additional expense towards the care of the dog. So that's why we were called for our rescue. I told the woman that, we would go and look at him. So we eventually got to the vet's office, and he was only an 8-week-old puppy, and he had serious signs of abuse. His eyes were all bloodshot. He had sores and burns on his legs, and he had a fractured hip, which was causing him a lot of pain. But when they brought him out on this little stretcher, he just looked at me and his little tail went thump, 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 and he gave me a kiss. So it was really clear that he had a spirit and we needed to save his life. So no one at the time would ever have known how much of an impact Miracle had on me personally, my rescue at the time, nor the people in the neighborhoods of Sullivan County. So it's a very long story, and I'll probably break the videos up into segments. But for this first one, he wound up coming to stay with us. We had to take him to an orthopedic surgeon, and he was just so fearful of everything. My hands were all bitten up because if you touched him, all he knew was to protect himself and to bite. But when I brought him to the kennel, I asked one of our workers, Kevin, what should we name him? And he said Miracle. And I went to the back of the building and spoke to another worker, Alan, and I said, we got to come up with a really cool name. And his name was also recommended to be Miracle by Alan. So it was kind of interesting how that name came about. Another reason why I wanted to do these videos is to show that there's a divine connection to everything that we do, if you believe. So that was like a validation, looking back on his story, that he was meant to be named Miracle because it was pulled out of the air by two separate people. So Miracle stayed with us to heal. The swelling had to go down, and then we went to see an orthopedic surgeon in over like by Poughkeepsie area, and my niece Michelle was involved, and it was very hard because he was in such pain. He was always trying to bite, but we had to keep him, restricted, and he was just really happy to be with us. You could tell that somebody had messed with him when he was eating, and I mean, he was tortured. There's no doubt about it, and the possibility of the hip fracture was from a horrible thing that could have happened to him that I'm not even going to get into. But the long And short of it is that he suffered tremendous injuries and abuse, but he survived and he became one of the best dogs I've ever owned. And I wound up keeping him only because he was so afraid. And I was his like savior, his little lifeline. If I even left the house, I had to make sure he was inside, because if he was in the yard, he would just hop the fence and follow my car. So he became very good with my close, circle of people. My boyfriend at the time, he was good with him. He was good with all my staff at Top Dog Kennels. So he learned to trust certain people. But looking back, he was the dog that set my life into rescue, because at the time I was showing dogs, I was working as a dog control officer, I had a lot of little, things going on, owning a boarding and grooming kennel. But Miracle set us on the path of pretty much hardcore, pure rescue when we really saw what a need there was for dogs to be helped, especially in that area. So I'm going to show you a little picture of my Miracoli. He was so cute. He's a little cute little boy. This is a picture, actually. There's a story behind this. It's not an actual picture of Miracle, but it's a picture that I found when I moved into a house years later. And it just brought back so many. He's the spitting image of Miracle. So again, there was a lot of validation when I received this picture. It was in a shed, discarded. And excuse me, I was moving into a new home and I was a little nervous about it because we were experiencing some major growth in rescue dogs, rescue soldiers. But the connection with Miracle and the New York State Police was intense. And when I found this picture, I was working at the same time and purchasing a kennel that was owned and operated by a retired New York State trooper. So again, a lot of spiritual connections that go along with this story. So I'm going to get some real pictures of Miracle because he passed away years ago. He lived to be 13 and a half, and he eventually passed of cancer in the mouth. But he had the best life ever, and we'll get some pictures and share some of the stories because he was a humane educator. He worked with kids at risk. So I hope you find these little videos interesting, and it's really about not giving up on a dream, letting God lead us to where we need to be, having faith and trust in Him. And when you do the work, sometimes it's very difficult, but we know that it's meant to be. So thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with another excerpt from Miracle's story. Thank you.